So the 165th annual meeting of Washington Hebrew Congregation is about to start. But before it does, I want to take a moment to express my personal gratitude to everyone in this room and those who are unable to attend this evening, whether you are a past or present officer, board member, clergy, employee, or congregant, for all of the incredible support that you have provided me over the past year. And more than that, all that you have done to make this congregation one of the premier Reformed Jewish communities that exists anywhere. To Rabbi Lustig, Steve Jacober, all of the clergy, the directors and staff, who feel that you are simply doing your jobs, please know that in doing so, you have touched the lives of so many. You have educated us, comforted us, inspired us, and led us in ways that are too numerous to mention. To those that serve on the board and temple committees, who may feel that you were simply fulfilling a responsibility to the congregation as a representative of your fellow congregants, please recognize that you provide an invaluable service to our congregation to make sure we are always focused on our collective mission and connected to our goals. To First Vice President Nell Shapiro and all of our fellow officers who I rely on for guidance, comfort, relief, and challenge, you're the best. You give so much time and thought to what you do. I am privileged and lucky to be able to serve with you. A year ago, I stood here and presented 3 goals for my 2-year tenure as president of this congregation. The first goal was to balance our responsibility to meet the spiritual needs of our congregants with the requirement that we do so in a fiscally responsible manner. I can personally attest from the many hours that I spend walking these halls and meeting with our senior staff that everyone is fully conscious of the fact that we have a budget that we must adhere to and an endowment that we must preserve. Within the past 12 months, we have caught up on the audit cycle, and 1 month ago, our board of directors adopted a budget for next year that includes a revenue transfer at a sustainable level of 3.5% for the first time in, frankly, too many years. Achieving that was no simple task and took enormous effort on behalf of Steve Jacober, Steve Stopa, the entire senior staff, and the Budget and Finance Committee led by Andy Marks and Carrie Coonan. The second goal was to capitalize on the bedrock of Reform Judaism and pursue Tikkun Olam, not because that is what others have done, but rather in recognition of our position as one of the largest Jewish congregations that exists and our responsibility to stand up and lead these efforts. We have hosted and attended events with hundreds of Jews, Muslims, and Christians in our buildings and in theirs, in recognition that through personal relationships, we can build trust and respect as tools to combat fear and hate. I am pleased that we have taken positions to address the pressing issue of immigrants locally and around the world. Kathy Shineson, Joan Greenbaum, Richard Newman, and others are leading our efforts to understand the complex issues surrounding sanctuary for those undocumented neighbors among us. And Melissa Schwartz, in her first term on the board of directors, and Beth Dubin, who will join the board tonight, are leading the efforts to organize our congregation to provide assistance to refugee families who have fled strife in foreign countries to settle in America, just as members of our families did in years past. Our clergy and board will not allow our congregation to sit on the sidelines on this critical issue. But in classic Washington Hebrew fashion, we insist that we do so in the most thoughtful, effective, and broad-reaching manners possible. The third goal was to do whatever we can to meet the challenge to remain relevant in today's world. This is a tough one, but we cannot call ourselves leaders if we shy away from the biggest challenge. In November, the board spent its biannual retreat looking inward and challenging ourselves on issues of diversity. Throughout the year, we have continued our visioning efforts, meeting with more than 300 congregants, non-congregants, and staff to discuss their personal vision of what this congregation should be like in 10 years. This effort was led by Nell Shapiro, Lou Weiner, and Bobby Lipnick. And most recently, the board spent time asking ourselves what we can and will do to encourage our fellow congregants to be more engaged, and how we can reach out to those who are not congregants to give them a taste of what affiliation with our congregation means. We are challenging ourselves to explore ways to turn attendance at Metro Minion services into membership, and to cause families to use the pride and joy of B'nai Mitzvah as the justification to expand their relationship with this congregation rather than a reason to end it. Underlying the specific ways in which we have pursued these goals is my deep personal belief that our most valuable resource, our secret weapon, if you will, is each person who is a congregant, clergy, or staff member. Everything we do has a singular purpose to expand the personal relationships among us. Whether it is a service in the sanctuary, this chapel, or under the stars, an opportunity to pursue spiritual fulfillment through service with others, whether it is hundreds participating in our MLK Workday or Mitzvah Day, or a dozen preparing meals for the hungry on a monthly basis, whether it is sharing a dinner with 400 interfaith participants in Edlovich Hall, 150 members of our early childhood center attending a Tat Shabbat at our suburban center or here at Macomb, or just 12 people having a Shabbat dinner in Debbie's in my home. Each event and activity uses personal relationships as the bricks and mortar to build a community that has the strength and purpose to survive for generations to come. I cannot declare mission accomplished midway through my term. Rather, I can say with pride that we have made strides. And I commit to continue forward with the same energy and sense of responsibility that I have over the past year. Hopefully, we can look back next year and say that we have accomplished much and served many. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may it be God's will. Thank you, and I now call upon Rabbi Lustig to present some remarks.
I want to first acknowledge and thank Steve and Nell for their incredible leadership. And I quote, "It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was an age of wisdom, it was an age of foolishness, it was the epic of belief, it was the epic of incredulity, it was the season of light, it was the season of darkness, it was the spring of hope, it was the winter of despair. We had everything before us. We had nothing before us." Thus Dickens begins his famous Tale of Two Cities in 1859, 7 years after the founding of this historic congregation. He was 50 years of age. No doubt he worried, as a man then of advanced age, what effect he could have in his lifetime on the future. What would the future hold? He saw both despair and hope. He was foreshadowing the effects of globalization. He understood then what went on in Paris could not and should not be ignored in London. We cannot ignore the plight of the other. Neither geography, nationality, culture, color, or creed detaches us from our responsibility and our destiny as one human family. We can choose to love or to hate. We can choose to care or close our eyes to the needs of the other. We today also live in a world of such sharp contrasts of hope and despair. The profound emphasis in our Torah to remind us no less than 36 times that we should welcome the stranger, for we were once strangers in the land of Egypt, is to remind us what happened to the Jewish people can happen to any people. Once society abandons the very concepts brought to us in the book of Genesis, that we are created in the divine image, that we are part of one human family under the parenthood of God, when we forsake this, we open ourselves to despair, not to hope. The pharaohs of the world want us to forget the message of Genesis. The Hamans of our world want to use politics to promote hate. The world swore on the graves of 6 million that it would never let politics of hate permit a genocide of a people. And we realized, without a Jewish face among the nations, that promise could not and would not be guaranteed for us. So we stand in a world of both hope and hate, of despair and promise. We stand in a world that asks us daily, will we see our fellow as our brother or as the other? And as one of America's premier congregations, we must recognize we are not powerless. We are not victims of circumstance, but rather we hold the opportunity to be the bold shapers of our own destiny. So we enter the threshold of a new congregational year. This, the 165th annual meeting, we are faced with the eternal question of Eden. Ayecha, where are you? And where do we go and what do we do? Tonight, on June 5th, 2017, we stand 50 years from the remarkable events of the Six-Day War of 1967. The first time in centuries that Jews in a Jewish state were able to defend themselves, and their survival was not determined by the will of other nations, but rather by the courage of Jewish soldiers who shocked the world in a miraculous victory that some still believe was an act of God. Realizing that since then, the destiny of the Jewish people, for good or bad, is tethered forever to the state of Israel. Its actions color the identity of the Jew no matter where that Jew lives, Paris or London, Washington or Jerusalem. We bask in its victories and we struggle with its challenges. But that tension is as old as Eden's questions, asking who will we be as a people. The struggle between the particular and the universal has been ours since God called to Abraham to fulfill a promise that justice and truth, equality would be the values not just of the Jewish people alone, but of the entire human family. Israel is a nation, it is our nation, no matter whether we live there or not, whether we wear a uniform or travel there on birthright. For it is our birthright, won by virtue of all Jewish history. Its future is our future. Its choices are not seen as a single nation's alone, but rather as a reflection of what the world sees as Jewish. Its actions affect every Jew, everywhere. It cannot ignore its character. We cannot ignore its character or its behavior, nor its battles. Battles whether they are enemies who wish to destroy it from beyond its borders, nor can we ignore those who within it wish to constrict its inclusivity as a homeland to all Jews, or replace its founding concepts of democracy with a theocracy which will redefine the Jewish people. Where are we? We're at a critical juncture in Jewish history, when the future of Israel's character, the Jewish people's character, is at stake. We know now the results of that Six-Day War are still a tale of hope and despair, yet to be determined. And if Israel and America is a symbiotic relationship between two communities affecting each other. Where are we as American Jews, and where do we go, and what do we do? I believe we go where darkness needs to be dispelled by light, where love needs to push out hatred, where the voice of the voiceless needs to be amplified. We go where God's promise to humanity leads us. We are American Reformed Jews who bear the light of our prophetic past, who stand up for justice, who fight against bigotry and hatred, who educate our children to build a better world, who pray to our God and count our enormous blessings of freedom, prosperity, and opportunity, who have to have the moral clarity to use those blessings to liberate those still in bondage. Yes, we celebrate our achievements of actualizing our Judaism through action. When we feed the homeless, when we fan across the city with hammer and nails, paintbrushes in hand on our mitzvah day, when we channel our compassion and caring into concrete deeds, when we become the voice of the voiceless, advocating for fair housing and an end to homelessness, when we open our doors to more than 800 fellow Jews in our city who stood united with us, reminding America that we are a nation of immigrants, and that we who were once strangers in the land of Egypt, that we will welcome the refugees into our congregation, into our homes, but most into our hearts, because to do so is part of our heritage and part of who we are and who we wish to be. When we stand up against racism, it is when it rears its ugly head in our own backyard. When 9 nooses are left on school grounds and public spaces to intimidate us, we must not be silent, nor will we allow fear to bring hate into our own hearts either. And when there are killings in London on the Westminster Bridge, or in Manchester when preteens at a concert who just want to sing and dream are slaughtered by a suicide bomber, or when days ago on the bridge, the London Bridge, when it becomes a killing ground for the hatred of others, we will mourn, we will pray, and we will send help for healing. But we will not give up hope, nor will we let fear supplant our faith. When terrorists or politics try to use fear to persuade us to hate or stereotype or indulge in bigotry of any type, we will choose faith over fear. We will, with pride and determination, continue to lead the nation's capital, not only in interfaith dialogue, but interfaith action. We will stand shoulder to shoulder with all who are victims of hate, bigotry, or oppression. We will support our Muslim brothers and sisters. We will embrace our Christian partners to build a just world. And yes, it is the best and worst of times. But most of all, we must realize this is our time to do what this congregation does best, to stand as a beacon of light, of God's light, for the love of all God's children through both action and advocacy, in teaching and following our tradition, in the courage of our convictions. We have never shunned or shied from that responsibility. And now more than ever, the foundation upon which we stand, built by lay leaders and rabbis past and present, that foundation must be fortified to ensure that these are the best of times. The bridges that we have built between us and the other cannot be broken nor abandoned. They must be crossed daily. There is no more important work than the work of harmony over hate, of faith over fear. In our deliberations and in our actions, the we must continue to come before the me. I call on you to come as you have in this past year, in unprecedented numbers, to pray, to learn, to work, to build for a better tomorrow for our children and our children's children. I believe the best is yet to be. This is my prayer. This is my hope. But there is one obstacle that perhaps we must overcome, and perhaps this will help. I'd like to share with you that our temple was saddened to learn this week of the death of one of our most valued members, someone else. Someone's passing created a vacancy that will be difficult to fill. Else has been with us for many years, and for every one of those years, someone did far more work than the normal person's share of work. Whenever there was a job to do, a class to teach, a meeting to attend, one name was on everyone's list. Let someone else do it. Whenever leadership was mentioned, this wonderful person was looked to for inspiration as well as results. Someone else can work with that group. It was common knowledge that someone else was among the most liberal givers in the temple. Whenever there was a financial need, everyone just assumed someone else would make up the difference. Someone else was a wonderful person, sometimes appearing superhuman. Where the truth be known, everybody expected too much of someone else. Now someone else is gone. We wonder, what are we going to do? Someone else left a wonderful example to follow. But who's going to follow it? Who's going to do the things someone else did? When you're asked to help in this coming year, remember, we can't depend on someone else anymore. In the Garden of Eden, God's simple and eternal question resounded in our hearts and our minds. Ayecha, where are you? Let us continue to answer as this noble congregation has for 165 years, simply with Hineni. I am here, not someone else, but I am here to help to turn the worst of times to the best of times, from a world of disbelief to a time of belief in you and in your power, O God. Hear our prayer, give us strength, and guide us in the days to come. Amen.
Well, the 165th annual meeting of Washington Hebrew Congregation is now called to order. Do I have a motion to dispense with the reading and approval of the minutes from last year? Do I have a second? This is the participatory part of the evening, so a little enthusiasm. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you very much. So I now call upon Andy Marks, the treasurer of the congregation, for his remarks.
Good evening. It's been my privilege to serve as your treasurer this past year. And I'd like to begin by thanking the members of the Budget and Finance Committee, which you may not know is a stalwart committee of board members past, present, and many others in the congregation who come together and meet on a monthly basis and with real rigor are financial stewards of the congregation. And they have worked tirelessly to ensure that we are on a sound financial footing. Lay leadership, clergy, and staff all have worked together to maintain the financial health of our congregation and to ensure that we can continue to pursue the sacred work of this institution. Our 2016 audited financial statements reflect that as of the end of last year, our consolidated assets, which would include our investment portfolio, our capital campaign receivables, and the value of our buildings and equipment and other assets, was nearly $62 million, $61.9 million. We had consolidated liabilities of $7.9 million, which means our net worth as a congregation as of the end of last year, or end of a fiscal year, 2016, was $54 million. That was a decrease of $2.1 million from the prior year. Our current fiscal year, which ends this month, June 30th, for this year, the board had approved a $12.1 million budget, and our projection is that results will be slightly below that, in large part as a result of some lower collections of membership dues, but very close to the budget. And the staff has done a tremendous job in keeping track and maintaining our expenses so that we could bring it in very, very close to our budget. Over the past 24 months, we have worked closely and vigorously to institute new initiatives to do two things. One, address accounts receivable and make sure that we were more accurate and rigorous in our collections. And secondly, to reduce operating expenses, both in order to ensure the financial stability of the congregation. So as of April 30th of this year, our investment portfolio, which excludes our checking account and staff pension funds, had a market value of $28 million. That was a slight increase over last year. For the coming year, the board approved a balanced $12.3 million budget, and we are confident that this will enable us to maintain the level of success and programming that we've enjoyed this past year. So I am pleased to report to you that the financial condition of our congregation is sound, that we are all working together to ensure it is sound going forward, and that you have a lot of reason to be confident in our financial well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. Now I want to make a brief presentation to our outgoing board members. Steve, if you can come. There's two that are here. Joan Adolph, if you can come forward. You've served on the board for 5 years, from 2012 until now. You're the chair of our Empty Nesters Auxiliary, and you're continuing in that status. And you're also a member of our Budget and Finance Committee, Music and Worship Committee, Caring Committee, Program Council. You co-chair the Hunger Project, and you've been an active member of Washington Hebrew for 31 years, and you've tirelessly served many years on the board of directors. Tirelessly.
Tirelessly.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
And Rochelle Barons, who's in the back. If you come on up. And you've served on the board since 2014.
My pleasure.
And you've served as co-chair of the membership committee, and you've been a part of the visioning and the strategic initiative task forces. You've also been a gracious host for a new members reception, which is very valuable. And you've been a member of Washington Hebrew since 2011, and you serve on our rabbinic council. And also your parents have been long-time and very involved members of the congregation in San Diego, where you were active a few years ago. So thank you very much for your service. And you were nice enough to share your infant with us at least one of our board meetings, maybe two. Yeah, thank you very much. And other board members that also served great, but they weren't able to come tonight, are Diane Cutler-Green, Jonathan Greenblatt, Karen Leader, and Stephanie Posner, and Richard Sussman. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Meg Flax to give us the report of the nominating committee. Always a pleasure to introduce you.
Thank you. I am pleased to present the nominating committee report. In accordance with the congregation's constitution and bylaws, the president has appointed the nominating committee, and the nominating committee has selected and is pleased to nominate the following slate for the 2017 to 2020 term of office. First, I'd like to thank the members of the nominating committee for the diligence and skill and care that they brought to this important task. Todd Deckelbaum, Robbie Fredericks, Nell Shapiro, David Rosenblum, Lynn Sachs, and Kimberly Walker-Vogel. I'd now like to present the slate, and as I call your name, please come forward to the bema to stand in front of the ark. The nominating committee is pleased to renominate current board members Ann Lackritz and David Oblon to serve a 3-year term from 2017 to 2020. The committee also nominates Beth Dubin to serve a 2-year term from 2017 to 2019. And the committee nominates the following to serve 3-year terms from 2017 to 2020. Jamie Axelrod, Betty Jane Eichberg, Edward Joseph, David Metzner, Sandy Nesbitt, and Paula Tiedemann.
Thank you, Meg. So, do I have a motion to elect the 2017 board members of the congregation? Yes. Is there a second? Yeah. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The motion's carried. And if I could ask all the past presidents to work their way up to the bema with speed and beauty. So do we have our on the bema? You,
Front of them or behind them?
any your choice. Hank, I've never been able to tell you what. Yeah. All right.
Past President Simon. We're good.
We're getting there. We can get started.
We have the left wing and the right wing.
All right. So we're gonna. It is worth waiting. All right. This is great. So, Washington Hebrew Congregation has been blessed for the past 165 years. May this historic congregation continue to serve God, the Jewish people, and our community with gentleness, kindness, and conviction.
We gather this evening in front of the ark to install those who've been chosen to lead our congregation. The history of our people puts strong emphasis on the principle that individuals are chosen by God for specific roles of leadership. We believe that God's voice speaks to us in this generation.
To be chosen by God is to recognize a purpose beyond today and to receive a destiny beyond tomorrow. To be chosen by God is to be committed to a way of life.
To be chosen by the community is to realize that men and women are God's most special creation, and that service to God means service to humankind.
To be chosen by the community is to listen to the words others speak, to hear the words that go unspoken, and to respond.
To be chosen by the community is to stretch out one's hand to those who need help and to a stranger who is homeless.
To be chosen is to stand up when others falter, to step forward when others hesitate, and to say, yes, I can to oneself, yes, I will to others.
To be chosen to elect and to commit the things we do, the things we believe, and the manner in which we respond, all determine our being chosen. We call upon the Board of Directors of our holy congregation to serve the Jewish people with love, leadership, and justice.
We accept our responsibilities as members of the Board of Directors.
By this act, we acknowledge the miracle of our own creation and commit to furthering the mission of our temple. I do solemnly pledge to perform impartially, consistently, and with unyielding integrity, in accordance with the Washington Hebrew Congregation Constitution, the duties of the office I now assume. I pledge to dedicate myself to those duties, upon which I ask God's blessing.
And let us say as one community, Amen.
Amen.
Mazel tov.
And if I can ask Cantors Manovich and Bortnick to come forward. I'll step aside.
Would you please join us in Shechichianu? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Thank you. Thank you, Mother.
Mazel tov, DJ. You got the last three items to come join us. Mazel tov. Mazel tov, Dan.
Okay. Steve Jacober, you can. Let the cheat. I didn't want to forget anything. Steve, it's hard to believe that 10 years have passed since you became executive director. On the other hand, when I think about all you have accomplished, please. And frankly, when I think about all the things that you have accomplished as executive director, it's hard to believe that it's only been 10 years since you became executive director. Everything you do is with an extraordinarily high degree of professionalism, competence, thought, and care. But it's your integrity, humility, and Jewish soul that sets the standard for everyone who comes in contact with you and this congregation. You are a mensch par excellence. Congratulations on this wonderful achievement, and I know that Rabbi Lustig.
So, Steve, I remember when you came to interview, and come on, scoot closer. It's not so dangerous here. So, there was a little more hair, and it wasn't quite as gray. But one of the things that was so impressive is that Steve talked about in Dayton, Ohio, where he was at the time, about how he was involved in reading Torah on a regular basis and tutoring people in Torah. And we had an executive director whose acuity for budgets and finance is all wonderful, but also has his PhD in biblical studies. So his passion for Judaism is only surpassed by his compassion for other people. Steve, your gentleness and the way you treat everyone, and only a few of us know all the details that come across your desk. We deal with the sacred. He deals with the sacred and the secular and the not so sacred. And he does it with always a smile, with an I can attitude, and with always a gentleness and kindness. You're an example to all of us. The rabbinic statement of saying, make for yourself a friend and find for yourself a teacher, embodies you fully. And we thank you and we celebrate all that you've done. And I told him tonight we're going to give him the traditional DD. It's not a Doctorate of Divinity, but it's the didn't die. From the pressure of this work and from the intensity of this work, we wish you mazel tov on this occasion, and we hope that you go from strength to strength.
So we have a couple of gifts to commemorate this moment. The first is a memento, which you're not going to be able to see, but you'll see it hopefully in Steve's office. And it has our three boys from out front. And the girls, they're
It has the three from out front.
the three individuals out front.
The they, them.
Okay. But what this says, because you won't be able to read this from that far, is to Stephen Jacober, with gratitude and recognition of 10 years of exemplary service to Washington Hebrew Congregation as Executive Director and as a leader, teacher, and friend to all. And for personal reasons, this may pain me a little bit, but this is a special gift that was chosen by those closest to you. This is you'll open it later, but it's an Ohio State mezuzah.
You all know my penchant for the Ohio State Buckeyes. Even though I didn't graduate there, but all of my children did. And tonight I truly am a Buckeye because the Buckeye colors are scarlet and gray. And I'm truly embarrassed by the kind words and sentiments that you're sharing, and the gray just goes with the territory. 10 years ago, I arrived here with excitement and anticipation about a new job, working in one of the nation's premier Jewish institutions. I've learned that this job, though, is so much more than a career. It is something that encompasses one's entire life. You opened your arms, you opened your hearts to welcome me and my family here, and you continue to do so today. And I strive every day to live up to your expectations, your trust, and your faith. Rabbi Lustig and the clergy team have supported my work and have introduced me to and nurtured my belief in, or more accurately, conversion, to Reform Judaism. I've embraced our theology, our way of observance, and our dedication to social activism. All of this has made me a better Jew and a better person. And for this leadership, it is I who must thank you. The staff has shared with me a truly selfless dedication to our congregation. Whenever and wherever there is a need in the temple, the staff says, Hinenu, we are here. They work hand in hand to fulfill a worthwhile and righteous goal, to support our clergy and our congregants. And for this example, it is I who must thank you. To the board, past presidents, and lay leadership that have taught me about extreme dedication and passion, you lead the congregation with wisdom and forethought. From you, I have learned about deliberation, love, and leading by example. There are simply no words to adequately describe all that you do for the temple and for me. And for this guidance, it is I who must thank you. The entire congregation comprises a blessed and sacred community. It is you who give life to the dreams and aspirations of our people. You are the reason for our being. You make a difference and make the world a better place every single day. And for this, it is I who must thank you. And finally, I would not be able to serve the congregation without the steadfast love and support of my wife, Beth, who is my life and my light. I thank you and love you all and pray that together we may go from strength to strength. Thank you.
Good job, Steve. So this, I think we should give credit to our president who wanted to recognize this, and who was, several people asked that, why didn't we do our tradition of doing a big dinner and whatever? But it was also sensitive of David to know that that would just been more work for the executive director. So David, we thank you for the leadership on this.
Okay. Going back to Shahriana. All right. So members of the Avodah Committee, if you could step forward. Richard Newman, Stephen Robbins, Beth Dubin. I'm not sure there's anybody else here tonight. Okay. Now take this. Or Dan Packer. No, Beth Hero for Dan Packer. Okay. This? Is that what it is? I'll dance here. We dance.
Do you want to call him up? Should I call him up? Dan Kaplan, please come to the bema. Dan Kaplan has been a member of Washington Hebrew Congregation since 1994, a past participant of the Jewish Federation of Greater Washington's Young Leadership Development Program and the Anti-Defamation League's Steinberg Leadership Institute, and a graduate school for the Advanced Jewish Studies. Dan has put his training to use at Washington Hebrew Congregation and throughout the greater community. He sat on Washington Hebrew Congregation's Board of Directors from 2004 to 2016 and was the religious school's 7th grade coordinator until 2015. President of Brotherhood and a team leader for Mitzvah Days Blood Drive. Currently, Dan sits on the Budget and Finance Committee, is a red apron with the Washington Hebrew Congregation's Hunger Project, and leads both Leiled Shabbat and Shiva Minyan services in the greater community. Dan serves on Montgomery County's Advisory Committee on the Consumer Protection. He also is president of the Promenade Towers Mutual Housing Corporation and a volunteer instructor for both Junior Achievement and Housing and Community Initiatives. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Janet Katz. Janet, come on down. I requested you. Janet Katz has been a member of Washington Hebrew Congregation for over 20 years. She has served on the WHC Board of Directors since 2012 and currently sits on WHC's Executive Committee, serving as Secretary. Janet is also a member of the Budget and Finance Committee, the Professional Development Committee, the Youth Committee, and the Tikkun Olam Values Committee. Janet serves Carrie Simon House as chair of the Volunteer Committee and also as a mentor to alumni of the program. She has also been involved in a wide variety of temple activities. She is a past Mitzvah Day chair and co-chair, a past chair of Tuesday Trimmings and Mitzvah Monday, and was active with the Early Childhood Center, Youth, and Religious School Committees. Janet's many contributions to youth include working with WHC's B'nai Mitzvah students on their Mitzvah Day projects and serving on the Adult Board of Directors for the DC Council of BBYO. Congratulations, Janet. Dorothy Kornhauser, would you please come join us? Dorothy Kornhauser is a fourth-generation member of the Temple. Her commitment to volunteerism began when she worked at the Stage Door Canteen during World War II with her grandmother, Rosie Wender. Dorothy has served 2 terms on the WHC Board of Directors and a board liaison to the WHC Library. She serves on the Worship and Music Committee and has participated in every mitzvah day since its inception. For more than 8 years, Dorothy has worked in the Temple archives and as a greeter at Shabbat and High Holiday services. Dorothy served on the Israeli Bonds Membership Committee and since 1979 has worked closely with her husband Lou to coordinate the collection of used eyeglasses, which are recycled for distribution to the needy. Dorothy was a co-founder of the Cancer Award League, and she has worked tirelessly for the Hebrew Home of Greater Washington, and she was my next-door neighbor for 20 years. So this is truly an honor to give her. I couldn't even call her Dorothy when I was growing up, so this is uncomfortable, but congratulations.
It is my honor and privilege to call Faye Levin up, my stepmother and my close friend. Faye has been a member of Washington Hebrew Congregation for over 20 years. She is a member of the Board of Directors for 10 years and sat on the Executive Committee as Secretary. She is co-chair of the Tikkun Olam Values Committee and has also served as co-chair of the Religious School Committee and the Edlovich-Tizer Family Relations Forum. Faye sat on the Temple's Long Range Strategic Planning Committee and has also served as chair and vice chair of Mitzvah Day and has worked on rabbinic search committees. In the wider community, Faye serves on the board of the Monument Academy Public Charter School, chaired the board at the Edmund Burke School, and sat on the board of directors at Georgetown Day School and the regional board of the Anti-Defamation League.
I wish you'd get the volunteers together. You know. They didn't even mention the books.
Marsha Pinskin, will you come up? Oh, here you are. So, Marsha has been a member of Washington Hebrew for over 45 years, where she has volunteered to enhance the lives of adults and children alike, including, for example, helping Rabbi Weinberg write the funeral practices booklet and braiding challah with third graders, I think with my wife. She has been a member of or chaired numerous WHC committees, including the Religious School Committee, Worship and Music, Rabbinic Search, Caring, Cemetery, Development, Long Range Planning, and the Professional Review Committee. She has twice been a member of the Washington Hebrew Board of Directors and served on its Executive Committee. She was among the first adult B'nai Mitzvah at Washington Hebrew and taught 6th grade in the religious school and taught Hebrew to adults. Congratulations. Kathy Scheinison, would you come forward, please? So, On a personal note, Kathy's still talking to me, even though we've been across the table on transactions for I don't even want to remember how many years. So her greatest skill is forgiveness. Kathy has been a member of Washington Hebrew Congregation for 27 years. She has served on the board of directors since 2012 and is co-chair of the Community Issues Social Action Committee. Kathy participates in the Temple's Tikkun Olam efforts, including the Martin Luther King Day of Service, serves on the Washington Hebrew Task Force concerning immigration issues. Kathy serves on the Anti-Defamation League's Regional Board Executive Committee and as treasurer of Hope House. Kathy is very active in her law firm's pro bono program. In 2012, she received McDermott Will and Emery's Award for Outstanding Achievement and Commitment to Pro Bono Service to the Community. She was recognized by the American Health Lawyers Association as a pro bono champion and has worked with the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights DC Public School Partnership Program. Kathy has advocated for tenants' rights, disabled children, and the empowerment of minority girls and women. She has also represented numerous clients seeking political asylum. Kathy, congratulations.
And they left out most of the best chili around.
Thank you. Thank you. So, if there are any rabbis in the house, Rabbi Shankman, Skloot, Miller, you can come forward for a prayer.
Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, "If it is people's task to complete God's design for human history, it is not enough to merely sit in pews. In each generation, the leaders of our congregation have fulfilled Washington Hebrew Congregation's mission, transforming our values into reality."
On this night, our leadership has renewed a commitment to move our holy congregation forward, even as we maintain a connection to our history and our heritage. We humbly ask your blessing upon our leaders, that they might be blessed with both a sense of purpose and a sense of fulfillment achieved through their sacred work.
O God, may you continue to bless these leaders of our congregation with strength, wisdom, and vision as they continue to lead the sacred community forward into the future. As we leave your holy sanctuary this evening, we seek your blessing once more. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha v'oecha me'olam va'ed. God, guard our going out and our coming in this night and always. And together let us say,
Amen.
Thank you, rabbis. So, as we adjourn, if everybody could join us in Edlovich Hall for a dessert reception in honor of, frankly, everybody. And with that, this meeting is now adjourned.